Welcome to the Empowerment Zone, brought to you by South-Dade NAACP, where we share trustworthy information, uplift local voices, and connect you to the resources and pathways that support thriving. One conversation, one connection, and one action at a time. It is where South Miami-Dade listens, learns, and leads.
Good morning, family, and welcome to another edition of the Empowerment Zone. I'm your host, Harold Ford, and today we have a special guest, Richard Lamondin.
Yes, sir.
Who's a candidate running for Florida Senate seat 38. So definitely want to give him some attention, give him your ear, and let's see what we can learn as it relates to this particular candidate. Also, as a personal note, we did invite his Republican opposition to attend, and her office said that they would be scheduling a meeting with us or taping with us in August. So we look forward to that opportunity as well. So with that said, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me here.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Lamont.
So I'm born and raised here in the 305. By trade, I'm an entrepreneur. So for the last 13 years, actually, I started my company. I saw a stat online that 20% of all toilets leak. We waste 1 trillion gallons of water every year. And so I went on YouTube, learned how to change toilets with my brother. We went door to door to properties. We're dead broke for many years, but eventually we broke through, and now we built a company that serves a lot of apartment buildings and communities nationwide, lowering water and energy bills for renters and also helping reduce energy and water use for the environment. I'm also the father of a 4-year-old son. And if there's one thing that having a son did to me, it was I started thinking about what kind of world would he grow up in. And the answer, quite frankly, that I keep getting is I don't like the way that we've been headed.
Okay.
I think right now that parents are struggling to be able to raise their kids in this community. I think that right now preschool costs in many ways as much as rent. And so I jumped in the arena because I believe we need leaders that are living the challenges of the moment, but ones that are also laser focused on delivering for the people in the way that people have not in the Florida Senate and beyond.
All right. Well, thank you. I think you kind of cracked the door on the first question.
All right.
What motivated you to run?
Yes.
Now, give us 3 major issues that you see are of importance that you deem unnecessary that would have motivated your issue or your decision to run?
Well, going into the motivation to run in particular, it goes much deeper than that. I look around and I am the Democratic nominee for Florida Senate District 38. I've seen a lot of Democrats lose elections. And I think that it's really important in our state, which is the Florida legislature, for those listening, is currently a Republican supermajority. It's important to bring balance because there's been an arrogance to their power. They have not solved many of the issues that this community is demanding. So going into the major legislation I want to deal with, number one is the first bill I want to pass in the Florida legislature and that I will introduce is to expand access to public preschool. Right now, we have on the books VPK, it's called voluntary pre-K. It's only for 4-year-olds and only lasts till about 12:30 p.m. You tell me what working parent could pick their child up at 12:30 p.m. in the middle of the day and take care of them.
That's true.
Right now, if you're living in this district, you're looking at anywhere from about $1,200 to $2,500 a month for preschool. How many parents can pay that? Especially in a crisis where they're having trouble affording rent, food, gas. This is a major issue that can unlock so much opportunity for young people because when you start ahead, many times you stay ahead. And when you start behind, we have to rely on our school system to have our children catch up. We haven't been seeing that. Our kids are reading below grade level. So first thing I would do is introduce basically universal pre-K here in the state of Florida. The second issue is I believe that we need to have a focus on high quality schools for our students as they continue to age. Right now, there is no transparency in the funding that happens to schools. We have public schools, charter schools, and private schools all vying for the same pots of money when it comes to vouchers. What I want to focus on is making sure, 1, we know where those dollars are going, but 2, making sure that we are paying our teachers well. They're 50th in the country in teacher pay. We have a teacher shortage. But 2 is also making sure that every school is held to the same standard. Are our kids rating at grade level when they leave the classroom? If they are not, that school is not achieving its mission. And we need to ask ourselves why. And so that's the next thing I would do is focus on making sure that every school has parity and that everyone is held to the same standard. Third is focusing on, I think, what everyone in the community wants, which is affordable housing. That goes in, that hits a lot of buckets. My day job was to lower water and energy bills. People don't think about their utility bills, but it's a huge part of why people are struggling right now. But also right now, my opponent passed a law that she claims is to build more affordable housing, but they believe that an affordable one bedroom is $3,000 a month.
Mm.
I believe everyone listening to this knows that ain't true.
Right.
And so focusing on real solutions that to bring to this community are incredibly important, and making sure that our people can grow up here, stay here, and retire with dignity.
Well, that's awesome.
Thank you.
But and I love the fact that when you talked about education, you talked about parity.
Yeah.
Because one of the issues that I've often raised in having different community discussions is the fact that charter schools, private schools, and public schools don't operate by all of the laws that are on the books. When you have 1,300 pages, and charter schools really aren't even required to teach your children to read.
Correct.
But yet they're being pushed and promoted within our society or within our state. So that's a concern.
Yeah.
But definitely, I'm hoping that if you are successful in your endeavor, that you would definitely take into consideration making sure everyone is held to the same standard.
Well, look, I'm also an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that everyone wants to make it in this country and be financially secure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that education should be for profit.
Correct.
I do not think you should increase and improve shareholder value on the backs of our children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's a fundamental flaw in what's happening here in the state. The free market, I operate in the free market. There are things it can solve. There are things it cannot. It cannot fix our healthcare crisis. It cannot fix our education situation we're in right now. And so another thing I will be is an advocate for making sure that we are elevating organizations that are actually putting children first and not profit.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at also, when we talk about affordability,
Yes.
we're talking about a number of things. You mentioned housing. We're talking about education.
Yeah.
You mentioned even utilities.
Yeah.
That's a part of it. Well, now we're looking at property. There's a lot of discussion around property taxes,
Correct.
property insurance. And one of the big issues, it's interesting, is we brought up the argument about property insurance.
Yeah.
But somehow there was a deflection over the property taxes.
Yes.
So how can we look at property insurance first, and then we'd have the discussion on property taxes? But how would we address the issue of property insurance?
Well, I'm glad, first of all, you brought up the fact that a lot of what's going on right now is a head fake, right? It's distracting from the fact that the Florida legislature, Republicans in Tallahassee, have controlled all levers of government for 30 years, for the lifetime of many people in this district.
Mm-hmm.
And they have not solved this crisis. It has been something that we've been seeing coming for a long time. It comes from the fact that they haven't invested in resiliency to storms.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example,
Mm-hmm.
right now we have actually a disaster relief trust fund at the state. Alligator Alcatraz in the Everglades was built with money meant to help us recover and protect from hurricanes. They dropped $1 billion in the Everglades in a year and shut that thing down, and it's a moral, environmental, and fiscal travesty.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about, a lot of times they want to say they don't have money to do things like I talked about with expanding access to pre-K. Well, they just dropped $1 billion on that. They gave away Miami-Dade College land for $10 so that the president can build a hotel for profit with nothing going to the schools. I say all that to say the legislature has been focused on the wrong thing from the get-go. And the property insurance crisis, what they've also done is given bailouts to the property insurance companies. They keep the audits of those property insurance companies private, and they let them siphon their profits out of state. So when a hurricane does come, they can claim poverty and not pay claims. So this issue does not have one solution.
Correct.
But the fact of the matter is when you have a legislature that sits in their pocket, as it appears to be, and does not deal with the underlying issues, we're going to continue to have a crisis. Where that falls into the property tax debate, I believe that people need relief. I talk to a lot of legacy communities, particularly down south, who say, I inherited my home and I'm having a significant increase in my property tax. I think we have to focus on relief for first-time home buyers who are struggling because the average first-time home buyer is 40 years old now. We have to focus on people who have retired and are retired with dignity and making sure they have relief. But I think people need to understand the way this legislation is written. It's not a tax reduction, it's a tax shift. Where's that tax going to go? Are we going to have 20-something% sales tax, as I've seen some people say? Is it going to shift on to small business owners? Because, big businesses ain't going to pay it. So what's going to happen with this? And they passed this in 2 days with no data in front of them. My opponent sat there and said, we're going to leave it to the people at their kitchen table to make a decision. Well, you can't do that when you have no data, right? And the fact of the matter is, if you want things like access to preschool, if you want things like a better community, investing in our teachers, then we need to make sure that we have the resources to do that. And local governments are going to shift the fees onto us in different ways to do that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's amazing. And when we keep talking about, again, property taxes, if we eliminate property taxes, there are a number of local services that will be impacted, a number of municipalities that will be impacted.
Yes.
And so again, looking at what has been proposed by the governor, and now it's going to actually be on, I think is it 2026 or 2028?
It's going to be on the November ballot.
Oh, on the November ballot. Now, what is it that people should know about the potential danger or outcome or results from voting either up or down this particular issue on property taxes?
Look,
we're looking at police, we're looking at fire, we're looking at transportation, we're looking at parks and recreation, we're looking at a number of things that could potentially impact
education,
as well as schools.
Look, I'll say it direct to you. I get it. People are struggling, and I think property tax is a way that seems like a great way to reduce the cost. And there are ways to do that, but the legislature has not done it. Think about it like building a house. Property tax is what's called a load-bearing wall.
Mm-hmm.
If you take out a load-bearing wall when you're renovating your home, your roof may cave in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we are looking at here, because what happens is in the District 38, you have cities like Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay, others that rely almost entirely on property tax to exist. You have services like you talked about, whether that's senior meals, whether that's after school programs, whether it's the fact that I speak to the teachers and I say, hey, look, even though they exempted education spending from this, that just means they've created a ceiling for you, not a floor. They will say that, oh, don't worry, you're protected, but we can't increase you. But we're 50th in the country in teacher pay.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? And so this is the fact of the matter is that this is an incredibly complex issue that affects every single aspect of our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Republicans, and especially Ron DeSantis, are basically doing this because he wants to run for president and wants to say he tried to do this in the state. He's not even backing this right now.
Mm.
So I think it's important to note that there are ways to find relief, but this is irresponsible.
In addition to that, I think, when we look at this whole situation, he has not expressed how he's going to basically make up for that shortfall.
No.
Because at the end of the day, it's going to impact us in the billions,
yes,
across the state. But he has not proposed how he's going to fund that shortfall, which again will lead to cuts in some very critical areas if we're not careful.
Well, let's talk about power, right?
Talk about it.
Right now, there is a big attack at the state level on local governments and control. So on this specific issue, what they have said is, oh, don't worry, we're going to have a pot of money for local governments who need it. Well, you're telling me that someone in Tallahassee, every year, local officials are going to have to beg for money from Tallahassee to fund basic projects in their own cities, taking away complete control from the people, the government that is closest to the people. I remember a Republican Party that used to say the most important government was the local government, right? All of a sudden, they forget that. You've seen this administration, and my opponent in particular, strip local government's ability to have decisions on zoning and what gets built in communities. We have seen, particularly in Black communities, many things get built against community wishes because that power has been stripped, even from the local governments. We have seen things like them ripping up rainbow crosswalks in Miami Beach, and we've seen Tallahassee push through water parks that have nothing to do with affordability. There are moments where I think that the state does need to come in, but what you have seen is a complete power grab by Tallahassee that is against the wishes and the needs of this community, and I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that they're trying to strip your voice away.
Yeah, and I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about immigration.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Immigration continues to be one of Florida's, I guess you could say, most debated issues.
Yes.
And how do you balance border security with protecting civil liberties? How do we balance those two?
I do believe that we need to make sure that we enforce the borders that we have. That goes without saying. Right. But I also think that anyone who's paying attention knows that our immigration system is broken. I agree. We have a system, and a lot of this is a federal issue, but we have seen there are very few pathways to citizenship for many people. Right. We have seen most recently our Haitian brothers and sisters get told that they need to go back to a country that the Haitian national team couldn't even practice in before the World Cup. That is how dangerous Haiti is right now. We have people being Venezuelan folks in the community being told they have to go back to a country that is ruled by a dictatorship they fled from and now is in ruins from an earthquake, but they still got to go. That is not the country and the values that I grew up in. My father's an immigrant. My wife is an immigrant. The pathways and the difference between my father's experience and my wife is very different. Back in the day, it was very easy if you came here and did the right thing to go on and have a pathway to citizenship. That doesn't exist. The laws are broken. What can we do at the state level? Well, first of all, we can end the moral travesty that is what's called 287G agreements. Right now, what's happened is Republicans in Tallahassee have weaponized our police forces to go out and act as immigration agents. So you don't see ICE here in Florida that much because police are doing their job. And the craziest part of it, you look at stats, some of the smallest municipalities like Miami Springs and Sunny Isles are rounding up the most immigrants because the cops there, I guess, have nothing better to do. I have no idea. But for me, it comes down to the fact that we need, and I'll work with members of Congress to actually fix the immigration system. But at the state level, we do not need our police focusing on rounding up immigrants that have not committed a crime. We need them focused on actually policing our neighborhoods, reducing gun violence, and going after criminals in these neighborhoods versus diverting resources there. And so I'm going to be an advocate for that, and also fighting for the people in my community and making sure they have a real shot to make it in this country.
Okay. And to your point, it was supposed to be about criminality.
Yes.
Not, and if you look at actually the Constitution and how it outlines immigration law, it's a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So if someone comes, basically you deport if you feel that they're here illegally or have come here for any other reason. And if they commit a crime, even while being documented, they can still be deported. Yeah. But the way this thing has, I guess, evolved, it's not to the benefit; it's to the detriment of our society. And it makes us look bad.
It's an attack on, let's call it as Black and brown people mostly. And I think there's a reason why, for lack of a better term, Trump called Haiti a shithole country.
Yes,
right?
he did.
As
well as other African nations.
Yes. And so there's a pattern here that I think people are awake to.
Right.
And this is just a continuation of that, and an attempt to dominate communities that cannot fight for themselves.
That's right. That's right. Now, let's talk a little bit about healthcare, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the environment. Healthcare, all right. What should Florida do to improve access to affordable mental health services, as well as healthcare in general?
Well, I think mental health should be treated like any other health crisis, and it is not. I've had family members deal with mental health challenges, and my cousin is actually a therapist, and he lives in Massachusetts. It's far different there. But what I have seen is that right now it is so expensive for people to find treatment and care, and treatment is so much cheaper. Prevention is so much cheaper than treating it. So first of all, I think that we need to increase and expand the funding towards mental health, but also make sure that mental health is treated by insurance companies the same as any other injury, because I think that is incredibly important. On healthcare in general, Florida is one of the few states that has not expanded Medicaid. We have over 1 million Floridians in this state underinsured or uninsured for the simple fact that they don't have coverage. But we need to go deeper too. I've seen Governor Jolly mention that he wants to empower community clinics more and make sure that they have the kind of funding to provide more frontline care. In my company, we provide healthcare, paid parental leave, paid time off. We pay our people what it takes to live in Miami. Why? Not because it's just the right thing to do, but because it's good for my business. And the fact of the matter is the Florida legislature is not thinking like that. And they need to understand that we're going to continue to lose people to other states if we do not address these core issues, which includes mental health, along with making sure that every person in Florida has access to quality health care.
Okay. And one point of correction, it's not Governor Jolly, gubernatorial candidate Jolly, but that's
Freudian slip.
To whose benefit, we'll see.
Yes.
Data centers.
Yes.
Rapid development and energy demands have raised concerns about water usage, environmental impacts, and in local infrastructure. What standards should legislature establish to protect communities while supporting economic development? And before you answer, I want to make sure that we know that this last session of our Florida legislature, they passed legislation. I think it's SB Bill 484.
Yeah.
That focused mainly on large data centers, but large or small, regardless of size, they can still have all of these different impacts.
Absolutely.
What would your
look? It's data centers have come up quite a bit with voters on the campaign trail, and what is very clear is that the first builders of these data centers, many of them were bad actors. They built them in communities without community input, draining on our resources, driving up utility costs because they basically relied on regular ratepayers to help subsidize their increased energy demand. It's a deep issue, but also our bills have gone up because this state, we're the Sunshine State, but we're like 22nd in the country in solar, right? We are not expanding many of the energy options to meet the moment. With data centers in particular, I do think it is the state's duty to create guardrails, and make sure that there are standards to make sure that not only if we are building these, and I believe we should have a moratorium until this is the case. We are making sure that they benefit the community. That means that a portion of what the data center earns needs to be invested back in the community, and that needs to be in writing, not a promise, hard information. The same way in the 1900s you saw, factory towns come up in which the factories spent a lot of money on the education systems in the schools. If we are going to build them here, they need to contribute to our community, because we know that trickle-down economics does not work.
Right.
Because if it did, it would have worked already. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so I think we do need champions making sure that communities get what they're due, because there is the opportunity to unlock resources for communities if this is done the right way. Now, I'm not seeing that yet. So until I do see that, I am against their development in these communities, because I need to make sure that my community is taken care of and that the schools and the people that I represent have the resources they need to be successful.
Okay. And to bring a stronger point, in Miami-Dade County, we have some issues where a lot of the larger data centers are starting to pop up in our Black and brown communities, in our poor communities. And so that's
coincidence?
a concern.
I think not.
Right. No, not coincidence. And then also many of them have been deceptive in their approach in getting approvals, because they're labeling themselves as one thing when in reality they are, in fact, data centers. And since we sit on an aquifer, the last thing we need is an environmental intrusion of lead, mercury, cadmium, all those things that run off into our aquifer, which is going to poison the waters, and we could end up as another Flint, Michigan. Exactly. And that's where my concern is.
And look, the fact is we had, there's a track record for what you're saying. Turkey Point, the nuclear facility, they, for many years, were required by law to line their canals so salt water did not get into our aquifer. Right. They did not do that properly multiple times now, and have not really paid a price for that. So you're absolutely right. The fact of the matter is that unless there are clear guidelines that protect our environment, protect our people, I am against their development.
Thank you. Thank you for your support in that regard, because again, what we're doing is preparing for the future of our children.
Yes.
And our children's children. Accountability, because a lot of what we discussed so far deals with the issue of accountability. Yes. We talk about, some of the things and some of the harms that could potentially befall us as communities, us as residents of Florida, so on and so forth. We are not seeing that accountability piece put out there. For even if we step back to just data centers alone, if we're going to approve them, what level of accountability, what level of assurance? When we're talking about the bills that are being proposed by our Florida legislature, what type of accountability comes behind those bills? Because if you're cutting things here and it endangers, its residents or its citizens, it's a concern. So when we're talking about accountability, what would you do differently as a state senator to regain and restore public confidence in the legislature?
Well, let's talk briefly about your point on accountability, which is if you want people to sit up and pay attention to you, you need to hit them where it hurts, and that's in elections.
That's it.
So this seat breaks the Republican supermajority in Tallahassee. And they have been incredibly arrogant with their power, as I think that we have all seen. And so the first piece of accountability is to let them know that it's time they find out. And I'm the best way to do that. This is the #1 flip seat in the entire Florida legislature. So first step of accountability is making sure they feel it at the ballot box, because I promise you they will pay attention to that. The next piece of it is what you mentioned, restoring trust in government. It's a long-term process. It is not something I can do alone. But it is something I can begin the healing process, because trust is gained over a long period of time, but it's lost in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that trust in our government has been lost for quite some time now. I don't know if it ever was fully gained in the African-American community, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I have heard, I should say. So when it comes to me personally, I give out my cell phone number.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk first step of accountability? You have it. Everyone in the community has it at this point. If there is an issue that's going on, I get it directly to my phone, because I believe in having direct access to my community. The second piece of it is making sure that we actually have leaders that go up and are honest about what they can accomplish. My job in Tallahassee is to fight for the things that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It's also to kill many of the bad bills that are coming, and show up for this community and make sure that they understand that.
That's right.
The third piece of it is to pull up people behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that has always been very important to me is mentorship. I was a juvenile diversion program mentor for a long time. Through that, I helped start an organization called Project Transforming Hope that works with young men, particularly young Black men, to find better economic outcomes. I plan on making sure that if there are people who want to run for office after I win, that I am helping them avoid some of the pitfalls of first-time candidates, because we need more people that can serve.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Florida legislature is not built for working people. They pay you $29,000 a year to legislate in the 13th largest economy in the world. That's done on purpose. They want millionaires and trust fund kids mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to make sure that we are building that kind of infrastructure so that we have more leaders coming up to challenge for these seats. And that's something I plan to do when I win, because that is how we build trust. It was when we actually have people representing the community who don't necessarily look like the typical politician, just like how I, first time running at 38, a lot of people ask me, why do you run? And I say, if not now, then when?
And that leads into probably our final question for this particular session. And it's dealing with voting. You just hit on the need for voting. We, as an organization, the NAACP, always talk about not just only registering to vote, but educating yourself about
Absolutely
not just the candidates, but the issues at large, and then also mobilizing yourself and have a election day plan to go out and vote, whether it's early election or on election day. So with that, we've seen attacks on voting rights in this particular state and at this particular time. And so kind of as parting words, and you'll also have an opportunity to give parting words as well, but dealing with this issue of voting and voting rights and the attacks, what do you plan to do if you're fortunate enough to be the next senator in District 38?
Look,
on this issue.
What you said is exactly right. Right now, there are attacks on voting. Women who have changed their name when they got married are going to find it difficult to register to vote with these new voting laws, because you need to make sure you have your birth certificate on hand right away.
Mm-hmm.
Mail-in voting, they've started to try to make that more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
They've knocked a lot of voters off the rolls. The governor has passed a law that basically knocks everyone off of mail-in voting after every presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, a lot of people think that they are signed up for mail-in votes, and they are not.
Right.
And I find that every single day having that conversation. And so I think some of it comes down to us, right? When they are trying to limit our ability to get to the polls, it's making sure that you are on the website, that you are registered properly, your signature is up to date. This all sounds very dull, but let me tell you, this election is going to be a big one, and it's going to be close. And every vote counts. I think we have seen that elections have consequences.
Right.
We have felt that as a community. And so this is something that is incredibly important, because the only way to push back on this is to overcome it at this point. These are going to become the law of the land, because this legislature, as I said, has continued to fail us.
Okay. And our final question, if listeners remember only one thing from today's discussion or talk, what would you like them to remember?
I'd like them to understand that what they're feeling is real. The housing costs, childcare costs, the fact that our children, we struggle to find a good schooling for them, that we can't find enough teachers. These are real problems, and you're feeling it because they are. And there is one party to blame, and it's the Republican Party that's held power for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I am a father. I am an entrepreneur. I have invested in this community. I've been a community mentor. I am doing this because I believe our children deserve far better than we are giving them. And this is the time to start that change, because right now this is an election where we have the opportunity to break a supermajority that has actively hurt us. And so the one thing I want people to take away from this is that I am your champion to make sure that we have a better Florida for our seniors, for all of us parents, and for our kids.
Amen. So, family, you heard the words. We thank you. We ask that you continue to like, share, and comment. Definitely want you to make sure you get registered to vote, update your information, educate yourself on the process, but more importantly, exercise your right to vote. I'm Harold Ford, signing off on this episode of The Empowerment Zone. God bless.
Thank you for joining us in the Empowerment Zone, brought to you by South Dade NAACP, where information becomes action, voices become movements, and community becomes change. We hope today's conversation inspired you to stay informed, stay engaged, and stay empowered. Remember, our voices are strongest when they are heard at the ballot box. Voting and voter registration are powerful tools that help shape our schools, neighborhoods, leadership, and future. Encourage someone to register, make a plan to vote, and continue doing your part to strengthen our community. And don't forget to email your feedback, thoughts, and/or suggestions for topics that you want to hear about to podcast@southdade.naacp.org. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep leading, because together we are building a stronger South Miami-Dade, one conversation at a time.